My girlfriend suggested a threesome, now she won't talk to me. I'm in a situation I never thought I'd find myself in, and it's tearing my relationship apart. I'm at my wit's end and could really use some advice or at least a place to vent. So, here's the whole messy story. My girlfriend, let's call her Emily, 30F, and I, 31M, have been together for 7 years. We met in our early 20s, and from the moment we connected, it felt like we were perfectly matched. Emily is intelligent, funny, and incredibly beautiful. She has this adventurous spirit that I've always admired, and it's one of the things that kept our relationship exciting. We've been through a lot together: job changes, moving cities, family issues, and the usual ups and downs of a long-term relationship. But through it all, we've always been solid. We communicate well, or at least I thought we did. We have a lot of mutual respect, and we've always been pretty in sync when it comes to our sex life. We've experimented with different things over the years, trying to keep the spark alive, and it's always been fun and consensual. A few months ago, Emily brought up the idea of having a threesome. She'd never mentioned it before, but she said she'd been thinking about it for a while. At first, I was surprised. It wasn't something I'd ever considered seriously, but the more we talked about it, the more intrigued I became. Emily was really enthusiastic about the idea, and she assured me that it was something she genuinely wanted to try, not just for me, but for both of us. She thought it could add some excitement to our relationship and bring us even closer. We spent weeks discussing the logistics, boundaries, and potential scenarios. We were both on the same page about wanting it to be a one-time thing, with someone we didn't have any emotional connection with. It was important to us that this wouldn't interfere with our relationship, and we agreed that the moment either of us felt uncomfortable, we'd stop everything. After a lot of back and forth, we finally decided to go through with it. We used a dating app to find someone, which was a strange experience in itself. After sifting through a lot of profiles, we matched with, let's call her Sophie, 28F, who seemed like the perfect fit. She was open-minded, respectful of our boundaries, and seemed genuinely interested in making sure the experience was positive for everyone involved. We arranged to meet Sophie for drinks first, just to make sure we all clicked and were comfortable with each other. The night went smoothly, there was good conversation, some harmless flirting, and by the end of the night, it was clear that we were all on the same page. Sophie came back to our apartment, and after a bit more chatting, things escalated into what we had planned. At first, everything was fine. We were all into it, and it felt like we were just having fun together. But then, halfway through, I noticed that Emily seemed a little distant. I tried to check in with her without disrupting the flow, but she just nodded and smiled, so of course I thought everything was okay. But as the night went on, I could tell that something was off. Emily wasn't as engaged as she usually is, and her mood seemed to shift. I was concerned, but I didn't want to stop everything if she wasn't explicitly saying she was uncomfortable. Looking back, I wish I had just called it off then and there, but I didn't. I was relieved, thinking we'd just had a fun, adventurous night that we could talk about and laugh over later. But the moment Sophie walked out the door, Emily's entire demeanor changed. She became cold and withdrawn, barely speaking to me as we cleaned up and got ready for bed. I tried to ask her what was wrong, but she just shrugged me off and said she was tired. I didn't want to push her, so I let it go, thinking she just needed some time to process everything. But the next morning, things were even worse. Emily was distant, wouldn't look me in the eye, and when I tried to talk to her, she just gave me short, curt answers. Over the next few days, Emily barely spoke to me. She started sleeping on the couch, saying she needed space, and avoided being in the same room with me whenever possible. I was confused and hurt. This was something we'd both agreed to, something she had initiated, and now it felt like I was being punished for it. I tried multiple times to have a conversation with her about what had happened, but she kept shutting me down. She wouldn't tell me what was wrong, just that she didn't want to talk about it. The more she pulled away, the more desperate I became to fix whatever was broken. I replayed the night over and over in my head, trying to figure out where things went wrong. Had I done something to make her uncomfortable? Was she jealous? Did she regret suggesting the threesome in the first place? I had no answers, and Emily wasn't giving me any clues. It wasn't just our sex life that was affected, our entire relationship was unraveling. Emily started spending more time out of the house, hanging out with friends or staying late at work. When she was home, she was glued to her phone or laptop, barely acknowledging my presence. The warmth and connection that we'd always had were completely gone, replaced by this cold, impenetrable wall. After about 2 weeks of this, I couldn't take it anymore. I cornered Emily one evening and demanded that we talk. I told her that I couldn't keep living like this, that I needed to know what was going on in her head. She finally relented and agreed to sit down with me. What followed was one of the most painful conversations I've ever had. Emily confessed that she had been deeply uncomfortable during the threesome, but she hadn't wanted to say anything in the moment because she didn't want to ruin it for me. She admitted that she had suggested the idea in the first place because she thought it was something I wanted, not because she genuinely wanted it herself. She told me that watching me with another woman had made her feel insecure, jealous, and hurt in ways she hadn't anticipated. She said that seeing me enjoy myself with someone else made her question whether I was truly satisfied with her, whether I was secretly unhappy in our relationship. I was stunned. I had no idea she was feeling this way, and it broke my heart to hear her say that she had only gone through with it because she thought it was what I wanted. I tried to explain that I thought we were doing this together, that I never would have gone through with it if I had known she was uncomfortable. But Emily was inconsolable. She said that every time she looked at me now, all she could see was that night, that moment of betrayal, as she called it. She said she didn't know if she could ever get past it, if she could ever look at me the same way again. I was devastated. I tried to reassure her, to tell her that she was the only person I wanted, but she didn't seem to believe me. Over the next few days, things didn't get better. Emily told me she needed some time apart to figure out what she wanted. She said she was going to stay with a friend for a while to clear her head. I was crushed, but I didn't want to push her away even more, so I agreed to give her the space she needed. Emily packed a bag and left that evening. The silence in our apartment was deafening. I felt like my entire world was crumbling around me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I spent the next few weeks in a daze, going through the motions of work and life but feeling completely empty inside. I reached out to mutual friends for support, but most of them didn't know what to say. Some were sympathetic, but others were judgmental, implying that I should have known better, that I should have protected Emily from her own suggestion. I felt like I was being blamed for something that I never wanted to go wrong. Emily and I texted occasionally, but our conversations were brief and strained. She kept saying she needed more time, that she wasn't ready to talk about our relationship yet. I respected her wishes, but it was killing me not knowing where we stood, whether we had a future together. After about a month of separation, I hit my breaking point. I couldn't stand the uncertainty any longer, so I decided to visit Emily at her friend's place. I just needed to see her, to talk to her face to face, to try to fix what was broken. When I arrived, Emily was clearly surprised to see me. She invited me in, and we sat down to talk. I poured my heart out, telling her how much I missed her, how much I regretted what had happened, how desperate I was to make things right. I told her that I was willing to do whatever it took to earn her trust back, to rebuild our relationship. Emily listened, but her expression was unreadable. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she told me that she had been doing a lot of thinking during our time apart, and she wasn't sure if she could ever get past what had happened. She said that every time she looked at me, she felt a pang of jealousy and betrayal that she couldn't shake. She also revealed that during our separation, she had been talking to a therapist to help her sort through her feelings. The therapist had helped her realize that the threesome had triggered deeper insecurities she had been carrying for years, insecurities that had nothing to do with me or our relationship but that had been brought to the surface by the experience. Emily said that while she still loved me, she wasn't sure if she could continue our relationship. She didn't know if she could ever fully trust me again, even though she acknowledged that I hadn't technically done anything wrong. She said she needed more time to figure out what she wanted, but she didn't want to give me false hope. Hearing those words felt like a dagger to my heart. I left Emily's friend's place feeling more lost than ever. I had thought that by giving her space and time, we could work through this, but now it seemed like she was leaning toward ending things for good. I tried to stay strong, to focus on the possibility that Emily might still come back to me, but the uncertainty was eating me alive. I started seeing a therapist myself, hoping to make sense of my own emotions and figure out how to navigate this mess. Therapy has been helpful in some ways, but it's also forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself and my relationship with Emily. I've realized that I may have been ignoring some warning signs in our relationship for years, signs that Emily was struggling with deeper issues of self-worth and insecurity, and that I hadn't been as attentive to her emotional needs as I should have been. I've also had to grapple with my own guilt and shame. Even though I didn't initiate the threesome, I went along with it, and in doing so, I may have caused irreparable harm to the person I love most. I keep asking myself if there was something I could have done differently, if I had just said no, if I had checked in with Emily more frequently during the threesome, if I had been more attuned to her emotional state beforehand. It's been 3 months since Emily and I separated, and I'm still in limbo. Emily has told me that she's still not ready to make a decision about our relationship, and I'm left waiting in agony. I've tried to give her the space she needs, but the longer this drags on, the more hopeless I feel. Part of me wonders if I should just end things myself, to spare us both the prolonged suffering. But the thought of losing Emily completely is too much to bear. I keep holding on to the hope that we can find a way back to each other, that we can heal from this and rebuild our relationship. But I'm also starting to realize that this might not be possible. Emily's trust in me has been shattered, and no matter how much I try to reassure her, it may never be enough. I'm terrified that I've lost her for good, that this mistake will haunt me for the rest of my life. Am I the asshole for going along with the threesome, even though it was her idea? Should I have seen the warning signs and put a stop to it before it even began? And now that we're here, what should I do? Should I keep fighting for our relationship, or should I let her go and try to move on? I feel like I'm stuck in a nightmare of my own making, and I don't know how to wake up. Any advice or insight would be greatly appreciated.